You're listening to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. Season ticket holders and lifelong fans with neighborhood ties discuss Cubs news and neighborhood happenings. Here's your hosts, Jeremy and Pat.
Hello and welcome to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. This is episode 404 of the podcast. My name is Jeremy Deemer and I'll be your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. He's my cousin and he's high atop Wrigleyville tonight. How's it going, Pat?
It's going really well, Jeremy. It's been a great week.
What a week for the Cubs. We've got a lot to unpack. All good news from the baseball front. We'll cover everything Cubs, and to help us unpack the week that was, we'll preview the week that will be. You know him from his many appearances here on the podcast, as well as his work at CHGO. Jared Wyllys, thank you for taking time out to talk Cubs with us tonight.
Well, thank you, as always, for having me on.
Yes, as we were saying right before we started, your 30th appearance here on the podcast, so we definitely appreciate it. This is quite a week for you to come on and talk Cubs, as we saw the Cubs in San Diego start the week losing 2 of 3, but then coming home to sweep the Diamondbacks and keep an 11-game Wrigley winning streak intact.
They only play 81 home games. I mean, this is a pretty good stretch.
This is a fantastic stretch, especially with the bullpen issues that we've seen the Cubs dealing with. We saw Nico Horner not play on Friday and Saturday, and really a lot of things could have gone sideways here, and the Cubs just keep finding a way to win. Pat, we'll start with you. The Cubs keep winning here. 2 out of 3 in San Diego to start it off was a bit of a surprise. We were rooting for a 3-3 West Coast trip. That's a huge success for this team.
Well, I believe, to be more accurate, I predicted that the Cubs would not go 4-2 this week. I didn't say they wouldn't go 5-1.
You definitely did not. Yes.
And, I know last week Jared was going to come on and then he blew us off because, quote, the Cubs weren't worth talking about yet. And now here we are after a 5-1 week, and he's agreed to come back on. Yeah. He's agreed to come on now, which is nice of him. Coming off of the long winning streak, starting with the, last week in LA, and then losing those 2 games over the weekend in LA, and then coming to San Diego and losing the first game 9-7, you started to think, okay, how long are the Cubs going to be able to carry this on with no Horton, no Steele, and no bullpen, and other things working against them? And I was really impressed with the way they were able to come back and win those 2 games at San Diego against a team that has a lot of reason to want to beat the Cubs after the way the Cubs absolutely abjectly humiliated them in the playoffs last year, to the point that they were trying to punch each other and the grounds crew and anybody else. And I think, it's worth noting that Edward Cabrera is really, thank God the Cubs got him, because
Yes.
He's been really important, and he came in and he was kind of the stopper. He came in and got that win in San Diego when the Cubs really needed him to, and that kind of, at least we were like, well, at least it's gonna be a 2-4 road trip. And then of course Tyon pitched well enough the next day, and it's like, okay, I get it now. The Cubs ended up treading water. Anytime you tread water on a West Coast trip to San Diego and LA, you've got to be like, okay, that's a positive. In the same way that when you play the Mets and the Phillies as many times as they did there in that stretch, like 10 times, who were 2 of the presumptive best teams of the East, and you crush them, you start to think, okay, well, the East and the West, we can hold our own against these guys, if not do more than that. And then to come home and face an Arizona team, and I'm not a pessimist anymore. I remember I've noted that. But Arizona has had a tendency in the past, even bad Arizona teams or mediocre Arizona teams, to come in and sweep the Cubs or do something dumb like that, or beat them 2 out of 3. And it's like they've been unnecessarily pesky, I felt, in the last couple of years. But not this weekend. The Cubs held their own again, and it was really nice to see the Cubs. I mean, if I had said at the beginning of the year, that Tyon, Colin Ray, Imanaga, and Boyd we're gonna wipe everybody out, that would have been an optimistic perspective. But sure enough, they all pitched well enough to carry the Cubs under like today, for example, with Boyd, under some fairly inclement conditions with the wind blowing out and stuff. But they managed to do it, and the Cubs keep rolling. And at some point, you're 10 games over 500, and it's May 3rd. You got to say to yourself, maybe this Cubs team, and it's not as if everybody's playing up to their capacity or their capabilities either. So that's another good thing. There are guys who will get hot who have not gotten hot all year yet. So I feel like the state of the union is pretty strong right now when you think about where the Cubs are 20% of the way through the season.
Yeah, Jared, you were at the ballpark here for both the Saturday and Sunday games. Is that kind of the sentiment that you're hearing as well, that the state of the union for the Cubs is all positive for how they're playing, how well it's going with all of the injuries and problems working against them?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the theme of the season so far, or at least one of the themes of the season so far, has been their ability to absorb these injuries. And not only like tread water through all of what's happened injury wise, but thrive. Because I think most fans, if you look at like their state, as far as like health, you would look back at this stretch that they've just had, and if they had kind of been able to tread water through that stretch, you'd say we're okay with that because they've lost so many people. Justin Steele had a setback, and all of the things that they've dealt with, but instead they're at the top of their division, which is I don't think anybody following baseball this year needs to be told that the NL Central is the toughest division in baseball so far.
We were worried about that before the season started with some of the teams, like we'll get into that later, but yeah, just the improvement other teams have had in our division.
And so the fact that, and granted, to be fair, they've yet to play their division a whole lot, but as the other teams are winning, so are the Cubs, and the Cubs are winning at a higher rate. And I think a big part of what you're seeing is just like, this is a team that is just, they're doing all facets of the game well. They're pitching well. Their defense has been just incredible, because it's not only like the ESPN web gem type of plays that we're seeing, like Dansby on Saturday, and then that double play that Nico pulled off on Sunday. It's not just moments like that, but like they're just a fundamentally good defensive team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. A pitching staff that walks very, very few people. I think they have the lowest walk rate in baseball right now. And then an offense that is really starting to click up and down the lineup. And Pat, like you said, that's without some of the guys really having started to heat up the way that we know they can. We've yet to see Pete Crow Armstrong, for example, really take off the way that we know he's capable of. Michael Busch looks like he's heating up. But there are a few guys, you're really waiting on, like Alex Bregman, offensively at least, like what's he have in the tank. And yet in a game like Sunday's, every single guy reached base at least once. They had only one inning where they didn't have at least one base runner. So this is just an absolutely relentless offense. And so when you have that paired with great defense, solid pitching, you're just not going to lose a lot of games that way.
It has some similarities to that 2008 offense. Remember when the Cubs just had an offense that wore people down because they took pitches and they drew walks and they got hits and they had enough power. That was one of my favorite Cubs teams to watch during the regular season of the last 30 years, because they just were really, they were a lot of professional hitters on that team. And I think we see some of that in this team. And some of the professional hitters are like 22 years old or whatever, like Ballesteros, whatever. It's okay. But I like the composition of the lineup and the way that they approach at bats.
Ballesteros on Sunday, 2 for 4 with a home run, a couple of RBIs, and he had the grand slam in San Diego as well. And yeah, it's been so much fun to watch Mo Baller heat up. He's quickly become one of my favorite players to watch right now, and uh, without with Michael Bush now just starting to his bat come alive, and it was really Seiya Suzuki and Ballesteros was the only times you thought there could be a legitimate power threat. Ian Happ has been obviously surprising us. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but I want your thoughts, Jared, on the emergence of Moises Ballesteros.
I think one of the standout moments to me lately has been, and I'm going to draw a blank on the specific game, so maybe one of you guys can fill that in. But there's the at bat that he had where he goes down 0-2 and he ends up drawing a walk, and he takes the fourth ball on a pitch that's just below the zone, and it's a close pitch. It's a hard pitch for anybody to take, and it's the at bat where you actually you listen back to it and you can hear him shouting the word no at one of the balls that was thrown. And I remember, and that was a game that I wasn't at the ballpark. I was watching at home. And so I was able to, I get a little bit of a different vantage point when I'm watching at home, and seeing that at bat, I turned to my wife and I said, he's 22, but he's taking an at bat like he's 32. Just so impressive. And so the home runs get a lot of attention, as they should. Today's opposite field home run, you see a guy hit the ball like that, that's always a good thing. But when I see him also taking at bats with the kind of maturity that he's shown, that's the thing that I look at, and I think this is a guy that is a real offensive weapon. And if he's hitting this way now and having these kinds of at bats as a 22-year-old, you have to think there's even more that he's capable of doing, whether it's later this year or in the years to come, where this could end up being one of the best hitters in the Cubs organization that we've seen in a very long time.
Do you have a fear that Ballesteros will be such a good hitter that it'll become really boring watching him constantly get hits? Or, I mean, is that something you've considered?
Tough times.
Right. It's he'll turn into circa 2001 Barry Bonds, where they'll just walk him, and
Yeah, I found that boring. Yeah. So,
yeah.
It's something to be. It's an area of concern, something to worry about in the future, I guess.
Yeah, watching Ballesteros, even watching him catch the other night, really exciting that there's some additional flexibility. He's not just always going to take. You don't always have to pinch hit in certain DH spots and lose him here. You can play him a catcher one day and have some flexibility in that spot as well. So a lot of promise there.
Can I just say, by the way, if we're going to talk about today's game, just as an aside, I mean, obviously the Ballesteros home run was big to get the Cubs back in the game. But I don't know if it's the first time this has happened, but did you catch the fact that the Cubs may have won this game based on an ABS ball being overturned?
Yeah, that was.
So first and second, Ian Happ at the plate, 2-2 pitch. Yeah. They call him out, right? And it's like, oh, well, that's a strikeout, rats. And he challenges it. He doesn't even leave the batter's box. He was so sure of himself. He's just like, yeah, no, let's do this. And the ball was nowhere near the strike zone. I mean, these things are usually pretty close. There was an entire baseball length between where the ball was and the strike zone, right?
That was like a 3-inch miss, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes it a 3-2 pitch instead. He draws a walk, and then Bush ends up getting the triple, and the Cubs end up scoring, 3 runs in that inning. So instead of a 3-2 game, it's a 6-2 game. That was a big moment, I think, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool that the ABS that you don't have to. And we haven't seen a situation yet where in the 9th inning, we would have lost a game because of that, but we don't because of a call. But those are always leave the worst taste in your mouth, right? Like when you've got men on base and when you're rallying and then you get called out on a bad pitch, or you're pitching and they won't call a strike when it's obviously a strike and the guy hits a home run on the next pitch. So I'm digging that. We talked a little bit about that last week and about the tendencies, and
we're pro ABS. Yeah, we're enjoying how it's been applied so far.
It's been fast. It's worked well. It's almost always a strike is the result, but in this case it wasn't, and it got the Cubs 3 extra runs, which was nice.
Yeah, I think it's shown a few things. Number one, like I agree with you guys. I really like the way that they do it because it is so quick. And there's really no arguing with it when you see the result on the board. It's just like, okay, that's the call.
Yeah.
Let's move on. And it's, I mean, you know, it gives maybe begrudgingly, but give some credit to the umpires because it has kind of shown like how good those guys are. Because when they do miss, they don't usually miss by much.
No, it's
The
like
Happ one
a
today
hair
was,
of the baseball thing. Yeah, like that's-
when I watch with my naked eye, I've seen the first couple of weeks. I was like, "Well, that's a ball, and it was always a strike," which is my joke. It's always a strike because just a sliver, a tiny little microscopic sliver of the baseball hits the strike zone, and that's a strike. And it gives me more appreciation for the umpires because I realize just how hard it is.
Yeah, because it shows you how precise it is, and the fact that they do get it right as much as they do is impressive. But I do think I feel like this is just anecdotally. I haven't actually looked up any data on this, but one of the things that has stood out to me about ABS with the Cubs specifically is when they ask for it, more often than not, they seem to be right. I think Miguel Amaya, when he's been behind the plate, I've noticed a few times where he seems really good at recognizing when, like, hey, you got that one wrong.
We pulled
we
Carson
talked to
Kelly's
Sanchez about that.
We pulled Carson Kelly's numbers last week, and he's only been wrong twice out of 14 times or something. So
having the catcher do it as opposed to the pitcher is the way to go. Don't let the pitcher. The pitchers are
don't
biased.
know.
Yeah, they don't know. Yeah, the catchers know though, and when the catchers are batting, they're actually pretty good at it too, which is the other funny thing. You know, like catchers are the only people that know what the strike zone is.
Well, and there's has to be something to, you know, there's a little bit of I don't know how big, but there's some advantage to like having a team where your catchers, for example, are better at recognizing when a call's been wrong and also like picking the right spot to ask for it too, because you know there's always the debate about like, is it too early in the game to ask for one? Do I need to save this, or is this the right moment? You know, because even the decision that Happ made, like he clearly recognized like that was definitely a ball, but also I don't want to potentially kill a rally here and accept this strikeout. So I'm going to use it in this spot. It's going to be interesting to see as the season plays out, like how certain teams are better at this than others and the advantage that it's bringing them.
Ian Happ on Saturday in the victory against Arizona, he got the coward cycle where he got the home run, triple, a double, and a walk because they were cowards and they walked him.
Yeah.
It's great to see what Ian Happ has been doing early this season. What a huge difference it makes when the offense has been so up and down and not everybody is hot. Some guys are really cold, and to have Ian Happ be just a consistent presence in the middle of this lineup, it's been incredibly beneficial for the Cubs during this whole stretch.
And I meant to put this on the agenda for today, and I forgot. Sorry. I was thinking about it yesterday. I wanted to ask you, Jared, Ian Happ, at least from the fans, I think kind of gets overall a bum rap given, you know, I mean, like historically, right? Given what he's done with the Cubs. I mean, he's basically a 10-year Cub, like 10 years as a Cub playing, you know, decent amount. And he's never had a year where his OPS plus was under, I guess his worst year was his second year when it was at 102. I mean, my God, the guy's been an above average hitter for a decade. Mm-hmm. How many Cubs have done that? Ramos Ramirez, maybe? Rizzo, did he maybe got a decade in? I mean, you just don't see that happen very often. And the fact that he doesn't get credit for it, and frankly, the last couple of years have been, you know, like, I mean, 2024 it was a 120, and then it was 121 last year, and he's at 157 this year. Is it because he draws so many walks and his batting average is stuck in the 240s that people can't get it out of their heads that like, oh, he can't hit, he hits 240 something? Or is it that he gets streaky and when he looks bad? I mean, we had a guest on last year in like June who thought that Happ was absolutely toast because his exit velocity was terrible at that point. It's like he's just like, how many times have people written his obituary in the last couple of years whenever he goes into a cold streak. And then here he is, not to mention the fact he's won 4 straight gold gloves. I mean, I don't know if there's a Cub in my lifetime I can think of who's had a decade that like Ian Happ has had, and has had as little fanfare and as much animosity really as Ian Happ has. I don't get it.
It's one of the most puzzling things to me. I am genuinely baffled by it because you're right. It's not just even like indifference. It's outright like I think there's fans that are almost like eagerly awaiting the time when his contract expires and he's not with the team anymore. Which I think is really
those 30 doubles and 25 homers and 90 walks, by the way, don't just grow on trees.
Right. Like, and because I do wonder, who do you believe that you're going to replace him with that is going to do better than what he's done for you for the last decade? And not only that, this is a guy who wants to be a Cub for life. I mean, he's been very plain about that for years now. He wants to spend his entire career in this organization, and it's really a shame that that's probably not how it's going to work out, because I suspect that he's going to be forced to have to try to, to go sign somewhere else, because he's not done playing by any means. But, many signs point to the Cubs may be moving on. Which I just don't think is right. I think he'll go down in history as one of the most criminally underappreciated players in this franchise's history. And it's very, very sad. And like I said, it's baffling. I just don't get it. Fans that have this negative view of him, I just vehemently disagree. I think they're being grossly unfair about the times when he does get a little streaky at the plate, perhaps, and you see some cold stretches. I think for some reason that stuff stands out to people more than when he is consistently and steadily reliable. For example, right now, he's with Sunday's walk. He has 24 straight games that he's reached base. What more do you want the guy to do in addition to playing good defense? And being a steady, calming presence in that clubhouse, a veteran presence. He doesn't get enough credit for the veteran presence that he provides. He debuted with that team in 2017, the year after they were World Series champions. That doesn't count for nothing.
Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's the fact that he came after they won the World Series and they haven't won it since, that people don't give. I mean, had he been there in 16, would it have made a difference? I don't know. Like Schwarber will always be revered for his heroics in 2016. And and look, I mean, I look at his numbers and it's like he's basically Harold Baines with a gold glove. Like he's just a better Harold. He's a hitter. He's as a hitter, he's Harold Baines, and then as a fielder, he's better. And it's not like he's a jerk in the clubhouse. I mean, Baines is revered on the south side of Chicago, and he only played like half his career there. And here's a guy who's played his entire career with the Cubs through some difficult times and rebuilding areas. He's never complained. He's never been like, I want to be traded. This sucks. Like, why? Frank Schwindel's playing first base, for God's sake. You traded away all our good players and you didn't sign enough replacements for him, and we're terrible now. He never did any of that. He never moaned and groaned. He's just been a consummate professional. I mean, what's his reputation in the clubhouse? Do the other players respect him and like him?
They do. I mean, that's what you ask anybody in that clubhouse how they feel about Ian Happ, and it's nothing but positive.
He's good to the fans too, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
He's great to the fans. He's incredible with the fans, and too, like, how many games has that guy missed in his 10-year career? He doesn't get hurt. He's knock on wood.
He's played 150 games or more now for 1, 2, 3, 4 straight years. He's on pace for a fifth.
He's in the lineup on the field pretty much every day.
He played 148 the year before that. He played all the games in the COVID year. He played 142. He's only had 1 year where he didn't play as many games. That's because he sent him down to the minors and then brought him back up. And he had an OPS of 128 that year. Thanks for sending him to the minors, but whatever. It's going to be one of those things that will always be baffling to me.
He's currently leading the team in OPS, home runs, and runs as of the time of this recording here after the Sunday game.
And I fear that when the time does come that he's no longer a Cub, that it's going to end up being too little too late. Like, fans will realize what they had after the fact.
That they had a guy for the last 5 years who averaged 4 WAR.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then when whoever you're dreaming of that's going to take his spot in left field, and you're just assuming is going to be somehow better than that, and will not be, and they're going to get really frustrated and think like, oh wow, it turns out we had this great left fielder for all these years, and we just never seemed happy with it. Don't get it.
No, and I think taking the defense for granted is what's happening in a lot of times, and we're seeing it this season when a lot of teams have come into Wrigley. I think every single homestand we've seen a catastrophic defensive mistake by the opponent, and you see spectacular plays and steady defense here from the Cubs every single time. And I mean, it's been every homestand. You can think of that play where the defense totally dropped the ball on the opposing side.
In the last 4 years and a month, he's been a better player at the plate than Fernando Tatis Jr. Just so he just has. Like, you look it up. I don't, he just has. So I'm perplexed.
Yeah, I could probably go on for a very long. I could devote a whole episode to just.
I think we're well on our way to that.
Yeah, pretty close. But yeah, Jeremy, to your point, I think we saw it in this Arizona series where there was, even on Sunday, there was a ball that dropped that I think Bush was able to get to second on. That not the same, but a similar kind of over on the other side of the field. That's the play that Nico Hoerner turns into a double play. And he talked about it after the game, how he kind of knew the way the wind was going to push that ball a little bit. And, he dekes out Corbin Carroll a little so that Corbin Carroll's off the base farther. And then Nico's able to double back and catch the pop fly and then throw to first. And it's a double play. So there's like the big stuff like that where we see these guys getting outs. But then, I'm thinking about on Saturday, there was, a ball, I forget who hit it, but Arizona batter hits the ball into right field. It kind of caroms off the wall, and Seiya Suzuki is positioned in exactly the right spot to field it, get it into the cutoff man, and it's a single. 2 or so innings later, a Cubs batter hits it to the same spot, caroms off the wall, but instead the Diamondbacks right fielder is not in the right position. It gets past him, and the Cubs have a double on that play. And so it's little stuff like that where you see their comfort with their ballpark and using that to their advantage, where, in that example, you're holding them to a single and you get a double on a very similar batted ball. Stuff like that adds up over a course of a season.
Yeah. And look, I think yesterday Swanson had fielded 9 ground balls out of 27 outs. I mean, Trey Turner doesn't touch the ball 9 times in a game, and that's including warmups, right? Like, I mean, it's worth noting that the Cubs defense, we get kind of used to it. It's not that flashy, and people frankly just don't pay that close attention to defense unless you're making like a spectacular play. And Pete's so fast and makes such good jumps, you can't even figure out when he is making a spectacular play or not, because he just catches everything so easily. But yeah, when you watch the Mets and the Phillies, especially in a 10-game stretch, you realize, holy smokes, like the Cubs defense is way better than these teams. Yes. I mean, if I were a pitcher, if I were Nolan McLean from the Mets, I'd demand a trade to the Cubs immediately. Like, I don't know why anybody would side with the Phillies. Anybody as a starting pitcher, you're just going to get crushed because your defense is all old and bad.
Yeah, I think you do wonder how many of these opposing pitchers are looking at what the Cubs defense does and imagine themselves in a Cubs uniform. But Pete's a great example of like making a very hard thing look easy, to the point that it is, you're right, like it's deceptive, where a catch that's for most center fielders is really difficult to make. He does it so well that you visually it looks routine, but it's absolutely not routine because he gets a great jump on the ball. He's incredibly fast. And so that is a good example of something that defensively for the Cubs, it's easy to take for granted, where he's tracking down fly balls that on other teams, these could be singles or even doubles.
Let's talk about another player who was very important in this week's success, Ben Brown. a guy who we've been hard on this podcast, but we got to see him close out the game Saturday. We got to see him with a good performance in San Diego. Pat, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on Ben Brown's week?
Yeah, I'm willing to admit when I was wrong, and I don't even know if I was wrong. We always wanted Ben Brown to be a closer or late inning setup man.
One-inning guy, right?
A one-inning guy. And what they've done is, but I've always wanted the Cubs to turn their other relievers into 2-inning guys. And sure enough, they chose Ben Brown to be the 2-inning guy. So in essence, I guess it works because if he only sees the lineup once, right, with his 2 plus whatever pretend pitches they say he has at the time, then I guess he doesn't have to deal with that issue he did as a starter, which is 5 shutout innings and then give up 6 runs, right, or whatever was his norm. But I'll tell you, as much as his 5-1 week was so great, without Ben Brown, especially with the bullpen decimated, the Cubs very easily could have been 3-3 this week. I mean, he came in to that Arizona game, and yes, Imanaga pitched great, right? Yeah. But Ben Brown was the one who pitched those last 2 innings in a 2-0 game when the Cubs were not going to score. I mean, it was one of those games where I'm like, the Cubs aren't going to score any more runs. We're going to have to hold this 2-run lead. And the fact that he was able to come in, no drama, Brown, no hits, no walks. I love it, right? For the 8th and 9th inning, that's exactly how I like to experience baseball.
Well, after Webb pitched on Friday,
men on base.
Yeah, you were like, well, who else would it be? Like, if he did have a bad outing, it was just going to be the random guys you don't know coming in here out of this bullpen.
And in that San Diego game that the Cubs won 5-4, that was a close game, right? And they were gassed. They had nobody left to pitch. Ben Brown comes in, pitches 1.2 innings. Probably could have pitched more. He only threw like 11 pitches, to get 5 outs. Again, no hits, no walks. Exactly the way. 5 crucial outs later in the game. Those last 9 outs are always hard to get, right? And he's been consistently getting, 5 or 6 outs, sometimes 7 outs a game. It's like Bruce Sutter-esque, except, he usually doesn't finish the game, but he's usually 7th and 8th inning. But without him, this last, 2 weeks, with Palencia hurt, with Mouton hurt, with everybody else hurt, I mean, we could go through the litany of pitchers have been out. The Cubs would, he is my MVP of the season. I know that sounds odd, but it's just sometimes you need a guy to step up in a crucial spot, and he's done it like spectacularly.
Yeah, and I think given the fact that it's been the bullpen that has suffered the most damage injury-wise, the fact that he has stepped up, it becomes all the more important. And I think what becomes exciting for Cubs fans looking forward is, Daniel Palencia was activated on Sunday. They didn't end up needing him. And so you can start to imagine laying out a
bullpen.
Yeah, like an actual, functioning bullpen where, okay, now we have a proper closer. But then you can think about, like, there are scenarios where maybe it's Ben Brown that pitches the 7th and the 8th, and then you hand the ball to Daniel Palencia. Or maybe it's Brown that just pitches one of those innings or some like portion of those, where a bullpen that has done a really good job despite being so like carved up, just getting Palencia back and having Ben Brown pitching the way that he has, that makes a really, really big difference. And what I'm interested with, in Brown's case, is he talked Saturday after the game about, like, he went into Craig's office in October of last year and sort of laid out a plan of, here's how I want to get better. He talked about adding pitches, and we've seen a little bit of that, and time will tell how real some of that is. But what I'm curious to see is, I think there's a lot of, like, the struggles that he's had over the last year or so, just mentally, the impact that's had on him, like confidence wise, like where he's at. Because he told me just kind of off to the side once last season that, he used to get so hyped up before games when he was a kid that he'd like puke. So there's definitely something as far as like
football.
His like the mental part of his game is definitely something that he's still working on, and that does seem to play a big factor. And so I asked Craig about that today, and he said, flat out, like, Ben's learned a lot from his failures, and it's a lot of the struggles and the things that have gone poorly over the last year that have shown him, what kind of pitcher he needs to be. And so it's something that, like, I've been very, like Pat, like you said, I've been very pleased to see how he's performed, but it's definitely also something that, like, as the season goes on, let's see how this bears out, because it still is only the beginning of May, and the season is long and things change, but I do think there's a lot of promise there.
So the Cubs here are 11-3 in Palencia's absence. Not bad when your closer goes out. Now, what odds do you think I could have gotten with this parlay of 5 saves in a row for the Cubs on one of the gambling sites? Thielbar, Martin, Milner, Webb, and Brown. Save 5. Those are the 5 saves the Cubs have had in Palencia's absence in a row. Those are the pitchers, and each have 1. I mean, that's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, that's just nuts.
And honestly, Brown could have had 2, but they took him out and put Milner in that Padres game. But that's crazy. That's really crazy. Like, that those 5 guys in a row have each gotten a save. Never the same person, just a different guy every day. I mean, that is bullpen by committee, exclamation mark.
And that's where I think Craig deserves some credit, because one of the things he was known for in Milwaukee, and that's carried over.
I hated him for that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Like, you have to give him credit. Like, we can't, I don't want to miss acknowledging that. Like, he's good at knowing this is the right guy for this spot on this day. But also good at, I think, instilling an approach in his entire bullpen of, like, you guys your job is to be ready when called upon, whatever that situation is. And so don't get too wrapped up in defining yourself as having a certain role. Just, you're a reliever. We need, people joke about it, but he talks about, I need out getters. But, like, I think that's a healthy approach, and it works for him. And Pat, like what you just pointed out, it speaks to that.
Cubs have 8 saves this year. Thielbar leads the team with 2. That means 7 pitchers have saved a game for the Cubs.
Yeah, like, tell fans before the season starts who will be the saves leader on May 3rd. And nobody's picking Thielbar.
If I told you Thielbar with 2, you probably would be like, "Oh,
what a year!
Cubs
what a tough
Cubs
year.
are 10 games under 500, aren't they?" I mean, yeah.
Well, someone that is having a tough year. We got the news. Justin Steele had a setback in his rehab. He took to X to make a heartfelt post.
I felt terrible when I read that post. He's really like, speaking of guys who run through a brick wall to pitch in a game, that guy is, like, seems despondent. I hope,
Well, given the excitement that he had back in spring training, that was right around the end of February, when he got, essentially cleared to just
be a pitcher,
like normal. Yeah, be a pitcher. He was so excited, and things seemed like they were going so well. He's, I think, just the emotional disappointment of, like, what he's going through right now. Thankfully, I think he's got a very, really good support system as far as, like, family and his wife and people like that. But it's a tough blow for the team when you're anticipating maybe a few weeks from now adding Justin Steele into this rotation, where now it's a giant question mark as to, like, when, or I hate to even say it, but if, because a month setback means, like, let's shut him down for a month and then see where he's at, and who knows what that means.
Might be end of July at the best when he's back.
Yeah, and so, which, let's put a silver lining on this and say, okay, maybe he rests for a month and then he's doing okay and he's able to come back. What a lovely addition in the second half.
He'd be like our best pitcher.
Yeah.
Well,
and
potentially.
So there's, in addition to whatever the Cubs do at the trade deadline, like, that's kind of nice if you can add him back in. And then presumably he's got a really fresh arm, and when you're rolling into October and playoff series and all that, could end up looking really good. Because he talked about that even in February when I was in Arizona, he talked about like they were sort of slow playing it because his words were, "I expect to be pitching in October." So that's my, I'll put a silver lining on it.
You just
It's
worry about the rust, especially
yeah,
with
yeah.
Tommy John. I mean, yeah. I see why he's upset. It's going to be tough, but
And
I like your version though, where he
yeah,
pitches well in October.
right. Like, he's because you're right. He is a guy who, would run through a wall to be able to pitch a game, and I'm sure he's watching what's happening right now and itching to be back on the mound because he wants to contribute. He wants to help them win more games. So this my natural optimism says maybe in July or so, Justin Steele becomes your big like second half boost.
So that's some breaking news. Justin Steele is definitely going to be back no later than July.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, let's look at the standings. You mentioned that we're 20% of the way through the season.
Just over 21%, I think now.
21%, and so now it's okay to take a peek at the standings and see where we are. The NL Central, all teams are over 500 as of the time of this recording. Not a lot of divisional play at this point. The Cubs have only played the Pittsburgh Pirates. But when you look at the St. Louis Cardinals, inexplicably are still hanging around.
Pretend. That doesn't count.
Yes, we wrote that off for dead. Once they start playing the division, they're going to go away.
Yeah, they suck. Their run differential is 0. They were playing over their heads. A couple of the
it's literally 0, by the way. The run differential is 0 for the Cardinals.
They have that second baseman / shortstop. What's his name? Westerbrook or whatever. He's fine. But like they've had some bounce backs from like post hype kind of players like Walker and stuff that were bad, but they'll settle down and then their pitching will end up crushing them. So I think, right? You say I'm right, Jared, please, on that.
Yeah, I would say there's two teams in the division that I'm not really buying. One is the Cardinals. The other one, honestly, is the Reds. I'm not really buying what they've done so far.
With their minus 22 run differential. Yeah.
Yes. I think, and the record that they've had in one-run games was just like freakish through the first 30 or so games, and so you can't sustain that. That stuff's going to catch up to you. So I'm not really buying the Reds. I think
we always knew that their hitting wasn't going to probably be enough to carry them throughout the year. The only caveat I have on the Reds is that Lodolo and Hunter Green have both been out the whole year. Talk about losing some good starting pitching, and when they get back, the Reds could both be a better team, but also not win it at the same rate that they're winning now, if that makes sense. Like the luck could suppress some of their wins, but those pitchers will actually help them, I think, if they come back.
Yeah. So I think those are two teams that you'll see start to fade, especially as they do play more division games. But the Pirates, I think that's a team to keep an eye on. Like they're sneaky good. I think we've gotten so used to just sort of dismissing them for the last how many years that it's a team you genuinely do have to watch out for.
About 80. Well, since the 50s, I guess. So maybe 75.
Yeah. So 2015, we paid attention.
They were decent in 2015. Yeah.
Oh, yawn. They couldn't score a single run in the playoffs.
Couldn't score when it mattered. But
but
I think that's we've gotten used to just don't sleep on Milwaukee. That's just a quality ball club. But I think the Pirates are, I would say, my sleeper for the division.
So that like 6'8" shortstop that they put into center field, that O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah,
man, he crushed the Cubs when we played him, and he's having he seems to have come awake here apparently this year all of a sudden and is making contact. And when he does, with his speed and power, he's a really good player.
He's a weapon for sure. And I go back to that one series that the Cubs played against the Pirates. And to be fair to the Cubs, they were playing the Pirates before they really started to hit the stride that we're seeing now. But it was also a series where they didn't face Paul Skeens. They didn't face Mitch Keller. And they eked out one win
And they blew that Saturday game.
Yeah.
Badly in extra innings. But
so you get 1 out of 3, and the one that you do win was a walk-off on Sunday, if I recall correctly.
It was.
So that, you look at that series, and I'll really be curious to see. I know they play in Pittsburgh later this month. I think that's going to be a very telling series for sure.
The Pirates, by the way, by winning percentage, are better than any team in the AL Central or West, albeit they are the worst team in the Central. So how's that for showing, just how tough the Central is right now?
I looked, and there's, all 5 of the NL Central teams are fairly above 500. I think at least 3 games above 500 at this moment. And there are only 3 teams in the rest of the National League that are above 500, and only 3 teams total in the American League above 500. So I say we just crown the NL Central and let the rest of the league duke it out for, seconds or whatever.
Are we like the SEC now of
Major
baseball?
We
just declare ourselves the best.
Absolutely. The best. The rest of you guys are all secondary.
Yeah, well, we've got to see these Cincinnati Reds next week as the Reds come to town to play 4 games. Now, unfortunate for them, they're coming into a hot streak as the Cubs can't lose at Wrigley Field. The Cubs are
convenient.
14-5 at home this season, so they've only lost 5 times. Were you at 4 of those 5 losses, Pat, or did you?
Yeah, I think they're all the first week, basically.
Yeah, so the Cubs and the Reds play 4 games, and then on the road at Texas for a random 3 games in Texas. The Rangers, for those paying attention, are 16-17, a game and a half behind the whoever the A's are. The A's are hanging on to first place by a game and a half over Texas, who is below 500. So the abysmal AL West. So let's look at the with these pitching matchups and the Cubs hot streak. I am always concerned about playing the Reds because they're really annoying. They're annoyingly difficult for the Cubs to play against. It's extra worse when it's hot and they're in Cincinnati, but even at home, I feel like those Tuesday and Wednesday night home games are just like.
I'll be at both of those. What are you telling me I shouldn't go?
I'm just saying it's going to be annoying. It's going to be tough. I don't think it's going to be an easy series at all here. But yeah, we'll start with you, Jared, on your thoughts about the Reds coming to town here.
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, I will stick to this. I'm not really a believer in that team. And so I think, because the Reds are coming in kind of cold, I think this will be the Reds' reality check. You have to come to Wrigley Field for 4 games against a Cubs team that is just not losing at home. And so I think this is 4 games sweep. It feels that feels like a lot to call for, but I feel very good about the Cubs taking 3 games out of this series, especially because of the starting pitching matchups that we're going to see on the Cubs front, because you have Cabrera in this series, you have Imanaga in this series, and even like Colin Ray, who's quietly been like pretty good.
He was great Friday. Yeah.
So yeah. So I feel good about taking 3 from Cincinnati.
Pat?
Yeah, I think Lodolo doesn't pitch until Friday, so we miss him. That's nice. That'll be his first start. Louder got completely crushed the other day, right? I mean, badly. Abbott's not pitched as well as I had expected. Jeremy, I think we were at a game, weren't we, when Abbott pitched at Wrigley, we were in the bleachers or something last year, and I'm like, who is this guy, and why is he not giving up any runs? It was very frustrating. I think the Cubs, looking at Cincinnati and then at Texas too, The Cubs, the 7-game stretch again. Cubs haven't had a ton of off days. They had the one off day last Thursday, and that's the only off day they've had.
They have 2 off
like
days in the
3-week stretch.
The entire month of May, they only have 2 off days. They're off.
Yeah.
So the 11th and 21st.
I think the Cubs go 4-3, which I know isn't necessarily, awe-inspiring. But when you're 10 games over 500, and you just start playing every week 1 game over 500, the rest of the way you win 90 games. So or more, 95, right? So I mean, I feel good about that. But yeah, it would be nice to win 3 out of 4 from the Reds. If not, if you split with them and then win 2 out of 3 from Texas, that's fine too. But I would like to punish the Reds because, to your point earlier, Jeremy, I find them annoying, like little pests. So. And we're not facing great pitching from them, frankly. So now's the time to pounce.
Jared, what's your 7-game prediction here?
I will go. I'm going to be really optimistic and say 5-2.
I'm with you. I'm actually thinking this is a 5-2 week as well. I think they can go 3 or 4. You laid out the pitching matchups earlier. This is like the best case scenario here for the Cubs at the moment.
Yeah.
I think they can take 3 of 4. I think they can take 2 of 3 in Texas. So I think a 5-2 week is very, very possible. So I'm going to agree with you, Jared, on the 5-2 week. We'll be the optimist this week.
I mean, also, look, the Cubs bullpen has just been lights out. The odds of them having an off day
do exist,
right? Same thing with some of our starters. So I'm not, like saying 4-3 is still pretty good when you play it out over the whole year.
And let's close out the show how we always do now this season. We look back. Pat takes us to this week in Cubs history and gives us a random lineup from a Cubs game in Cubs history. Pat, what year are we in this year?
Well, I decided I want to make sure that the guest can contribute. And Jared, you seem old enough for this one. So I'm going to go back. I talked about it earlier today, so I thought it's only fitting to go back to Saturday, May 3rd, 2008.
Oh,
my favorite team, that 08 team.
What a great 08 season. Yeah.
Cubs were in St. Louis that day. Speaking of teams, the Cubs were 18-12. The Cardinals were 19-12. Cubs beat them 9-3 in front of 46,792 people. I don't think the Cardinals are going to draw that in any game this year.
They don't draw that much. Yeah, they don't draw like that like they used to.
Now, the one aspect of the Cubs taking a lot of pitches and wearing people down back in those days is the games were incredibly long. This was on the shorter side for the Cubs that year. It was a 2-hour, 53-minute game.
Wow.
But they hit the 3-hour mark quite a bit back then. So I am going to ask you, first of all, I don't know if it's fair to make you guess who the starting pitcher was, but it was somebody who we are familiar with and who was a mainstay on that stretch in the late aughts. Pitched in the playoffs.
I'll guess Carlos Zambrano.
Is not Carlos Zambrano. This guy came later. This guy really was the later aughts. He was not part of that 03-04 debacle.
Is this Ted Lilly?
Yes, it is Ted Lilly.
Oh, Ted Lilly.
He won that day, and coming in relief, although he did not pick up a save because he was a setup man at the time, was none other than one Carlos Marmol in his setup role. Also, he had a 1.29 ERA, which was pretty consistent for the year. Okay, so what was the lineup that day, do you think? When you think back to the 08
month was this again? This was
it was today.
It was today.
Yeah,
so we're early.
So do you have Soriano leading off?
You do, playing left field, absolutely.
Right. So I wonder, second batter, is that are we talking Ryan Theriot?
The Riot.
The
Riot shortstop, batting second.
Good pull.
And then it's third and fourth is got to be Aramis Ramirez and Derek Lee. I'm going to guess Ramirez third, Derek Lee fourth.
So it was Lee third, only because Ramirez was out that day, probably tweaked his hammy or something. Okay. So So the Cubs' second baseman was playing third base that day and was moved down to fifth in the lineup.
Is that Fontenot?
Fontenot actually did play second base that day, but he was not the regular second baseman.
It's DeRosa.
DeRosa, right. So it was Soriano, the Riot, Lee, question mark, DeRosa, question mark, Fontenot, question mark. So we still need a center fielder, a catcher, and a right fielder.
Was Giovanni Soto?
Yes, he was the
Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Rookie of the Year, Soto.
Batting sixth.
Center field, I am drawing a total blank, I have to admit.
Former Toronto Blue Jay, not exactly, a household name, but played, fairly well for the Cubs that year.
This is my favorite part, where people are yelling at their radios is when they're
Somebody's
listening in their car.
Out,
yeah, they're walking the dog and yelling like, "Come on!"
He had an interesting career. He played for the Cubs in 08 and 09, and then he went to the Dodgers, and then came back in 11 and 12.
I'm gonna kick myself when
he hit 303 in 2008. That was a good team, that 08 team. The 778 OPS. If I told you that he was born on December 8th, would that change anything? Probably not. He was a Blue Jay. I always thought he was a Blue Jay, and then he was a Cub. Then he bounced around a little bit. He had a very nondescript name. One of the most common last names in America.
Is it Smith?
No, that is the most common name. This is probably second.
Oh,
Reed Johnson.
Reed Johnson.
Yes,
yeah.
Reed Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
That hint actually helped. Yeah.
Yes, Reed Johnson, of course.
And then the right fielder, who you know well because he was a household name during the stretch, who was batting cleanup that day, hitting 348, I might add. He was a sensation.
Kosuke
Fukudome, yes. So it goes Soriano, Terrio, Lee, Fukudome, DeRosa, Soto, Fontenot, and Reed. And really, other than Ramirez being out and having Fontenot playing second because DeRosa had to play third, it was pretty much that was the lineup that the Cubs used for much of the year.
Yeah, Jim Edmonds was a nice addition there. Later on,
I would have to agree. I think, looking back, that 2008 team, of course, during the regular season was one of the more fun seasons to watch in my memory. Obviously playoffs were a disappointment, but I look back very, very fondly on that team.
The Cubs forced the Cardinals to throw 172 pitches in this game, and that was pretty par for the course back then. And the Cubs elevated themselves to, I guess they were still technically a half game out of first place after that day. But the Cubs on May 3rd, 2026 were en route to leading the league in wins, as it turns out. One of the more disappointing playoff runs.
Yeah.
That one well, we can talk about that some other time, but I found that particularly disappointing after, you win. I know how the Pirates feel.
It extra hurt. Yeah.
Yeah,
because it was two divisional round sweeps in a row.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Back to back. But the Cubs during the regular season did win 97 games, and this was one of them. So fun times.
Oh, it was a fun season. And it's been a fun podcast as we are about to wrap it up here. Always fun. Time flies when we're catching up with Jared and we're talking Cubs. Jared, please remind all of our listeners how they can find your work on the internet.
Yeah, I'm on X at J Wyllys, Instagram at Jared Wyllys. But most importantly, you can find my written work at allchgo.com. Then I also have a Substack called The Dugout that you can subscribe to. So that's what I would most love if people would come find me in those places.
And loved seeing you, the written article for the Pete Crow Armstrong piece that you did.
Yes.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. And and as people are listening to this on Tuesday the 5th, that's when you should be able to find that article in Baseball Digest. You should see it on shelves. So there's a cover story on Pete Crow Armstrong that I was lucky enough to write. So yeah, go buy a copy for sure.
I think your article might make him kind of famous. He might people might start to figure out who he is.
People will finally give this guy some attention.
And I say that as someone who was a Baseball Digest subscriber all through his childhood, because that's how you learned about baseball back in those days.
And you can, of course, follow us on all the social media platforms at Wrigleyville Nat. Our Patreon is how we keep this show ad-free every single week. That's over at our Patreon, patreon.com/Wrigleyville Nation. And if you want to support the show for free, of course, the best way to do that is to go to our YouTube channel where the video version of this podcast is. Throwing us likes and subscribes over there helps us work the algorithm so other Cub fans can find the show. And if you're in your podcatcher of choice, throwing us those 5-star reviews, another easy, free way to support the show. If you want to support the show financially, you can also do that not only through the Patreon, but through the store. You can get yourself shirts, mugs, hats. We got all kinds of Wrigleyville Nation merch that you can buy, and every single penny, of course, goes back into the show. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. All the links I described, the entire back catalog of this podcast, everything is available at the website wrigleyvillenation.com. Pat, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.